Today's shir is sponsored by Gail and Norman Brainin, Golda Nochem Brainin, in honor of my birthday. I don't know how she knew. The shir is also Leila Nishmat Bela Bas Yaakov, and it's for Leila Nishmat Osher Shmuel Chaim ben Ephraim, Yaakov HaKohen ben Gedalia Cohen, Avraham Yosef ben Yaakov HaKohen, Pesha Bela Bas Isidor, Tzida ben Chaim Pesach, Yitzchak ben Sarah, Devorah Bas Yitzchak, Avram ben Mordechai David, Reuben ben Shmuel, Shoshana bas Elchanan, Reuben ben Shmuel, Yisrael ben Yaakov Yitzchak, Chaim ben Fega, Mordechai Netzach ben Rivka, Rachel bas Yosef, Eliezer ben Yaakov, Chaim ben Gedalia, Zalman Lev ben Moshe, Chaim Eliyahu ben Yosef Moshe, Amichai ben Yaakov, Gedalia ben Tzvi Ruvain, Leila Nishmatam. Today we're going to see, was Moshe Rabbeinu punished for not joining the IDF? What do I mean by that? Strange, but if you look in the end of last week's Parsha, B'Shalach, you have the sheets in front of you, we read when the Jews came out of Egypt, they were terrorized by Amalek, the first terror attack in history, right, Avraham? So look at Pasuk Yud Aleph. You have that? Pasuk Yud Aleph, it's underlined in yellow. Yeah. So Yeshua ben Nun goes to fight. V'hoya kashiyora Moshe. Moshe doesn't go to fight. Right? Moshe doesn't go to fight. What does he do? He raises his hands. Pasuk Yud Aleph. V'hoya kashiyora Moshe yodo. When Moshe lifts up his hand, v'gova Yisrael, then Israel is victorious. V'kashiyaniach yodo. And Moshe puts down his hand, v'gover Amalek. Amalek is victorious. Does Moshe have magic hands, Avram? What is going on over here? So Rashi, look at Rashi Yud Aleph. Kashiyorim Moshe Yodo. When Moshe lifted up his hands, we were victorious. And Moshe let down his hands, the PLO was victorious. Look, Ma, what's it got to do with the hands? So look at Rashi. You have that? Kashiyorim Moshe. So Rashi quotes the Mishnah tractate Rosh Hashanah. See that you the top Rashi? V'chiyodav shel Moshe noitzchais mochama. Can Moshe hands make war or break war? So Rashi quotes the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara Rosh Hashanah 29 says, no, Moshe doesn't have magic hands. But when Moshe lifted up his hands, then it helped the Jews focus on Hashem above. That God's in charge. That whether we win a war or lose a war, we have to do ishtadlut, but it's all up to him. And when Moshe let down his hands, the Jews broke concentration. And then they figured it's up to them. And then they were defeated. So Moshe's hands were not magic, but they acted what, Ray, as a symbol. Look up to the one above. He's the one. Of course you have to make ishtadlut and make the effort, but ultimately it's up to God. But when he put his hands down, the Jews, Avram, deluded themselves and they thought that what? We make the war, right? It's up to us, right? He had a staff in his hand, and it was like a banner to focus on the one above. Okay, it wasn't that he had magic hands; it was a symbol. Human beings need tangible symbols in order to help us what? Focus. Okay, so Pasuk Yud Bet, back in the text. You have that. Yidei Moshe kvedim, Moshe's hands became very heavy. Vayikhu even, so they took a stone, they yisum utachtov, and they placed a stone under him. He's on top of the mountain. He didn't take part in the war. Vayoshev aleh, and he sat on it. Va'aron v'chur, who's Aaron? His brother. Who was Chur? Who was Chur? Rachmiel. His nephew, the son of Miriam. Tamchu biyadav. They supported his hands. Mizeh echad u'mizeh echad. Moshe Rabbeinu, the great lawgiver, the Redeemer, who did all the miracles for us, Eze Bushai couldn't even keep his hands up. He needed his brother and his nephew to what? Hold his hands up. V'hi yodav emunah, and his hands were emunah ad bo hashemesh, until the sun went down. This is the only time you have the word emunah in the Torah. You know that? Emunah. What does emunah mean? Faith. Well, his hands were faithful. What does that mean? V'hi yodav emunah. So the word emunah means loyal. His hands were loyal. They did what they're supposed to. What? They're supposed to stay raised up. But why does the Torah tell me? This is a humiliating sight. Moshe Rabbeinu, the mighty warrior, the great lawgiver, the redeemer, he couldn't even keep his hands up. He needed support. It's a humiliating sight from his brother and from his nephew. Now, why dafke those two? There are many good Jews. Why did he choose Aaron and Hur to be his what? Assistants. Why dafke they three? Let's think. The Mishnah says, Al shloisha devarim olam omed. The world stands on three pillars: Torah, Avodah, Ugemilas Chasadim. Who's the pillar of Torah here? Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? Who's the pillar of Avodah? What does Avodah mean? Temple service? Aaron. And Hur was the son of Miriam. Who rescued the Jewish babies in Mitzrayim, the midwife? Miriam. So she is the pillar of what? Gemilas Chasadim. So therefore it was Moshe, Aaron, and Hur. Moshe is the pillar of Torah. Aaron is the pillar of Avodah. And Hur, the son of Miriam, she is the pillar of Gemilas Chesed. So her son personifies the third pillar that the world stands on, doing acts of loving kindness. And what greater act of loving kindness than saving Jewish babies? Right? So that's why them three were on top of the mountain, acting as what? As a rallying cry for the Jews to help focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
What was the second one, Rabbi? Torah?
That's Moses, right? Avodah. Temple service. Who's that? Aaron. And Gemilas Chasadim, that is Hur, the son of Miriam. Miriam personified loving kindness when she protected and saved the Jewish babies from Pharaoh. So therefore, those are the three pillars that held the world up. Perhaps there's another reason why them three. Aaron, the Mishnah says, Oef Sholem Verodef Sholem. Aaron is the peace lover, right? Yeah. Hur was the Kanoi. Kanoi, he tried to stop the mob from making the Egel, right? He was the Kanoi. The jealous one, the Kanoi. Aaron is the Oef Sholem Verodef Sholem. Can we all get along? Hur is the Kanoi. The zealous one. So they were on the side. Moses was the leader. He was in the middle. A leader needs support from the right and from the left. But the leader has to be in the center. We can say Aaron was like, Shalom, the peacenik. Right? Love peace, pursuing peace. Hur was the other guy. The other side. Right? The tough guy. But Moshe, the leader, he has to be what? In the middle. He needs the support of what? Of the right and the left. But it's an amazing Rashi over here. Why did Moshe suffer such a humiliating sight that he could not even keep up his hands? See the next Rashi, Yehuda Videi Moshe Kvedim. Moshe's hands were heavy. He ain't heavy. Videi Moshe Kvedim. The next Rashi, Yud Bet. You have that? Yeah. Why did he suffer this? Bishvil shenisatzel b'mitzvah. He was, how do you say atzlut in Hebrew, Ray?
What's that?
Atzlut means lazy. Can you imagine Rashi would say that? B'shvil shenisatzel b'mitzvah. Moshe was lazy in the mitzvah. Umina acher tachtav, and he appointed someone else to do the war in his place. Who did he appoint? Yeshua ben Nun. This Yaklu Yadav, therefore his hands became heavy and tired. So Rashi said it was a punishment because he was lax in the mitzvah. And he sent someone else. Which mitzvah was he lax in? To fight in the IDF against the enemies of Israel. So since he appointed Yeshua ben Nun in his place, therefore he suffered this humiliating sight of what? Of having to, Eze busha v'cherpa, the mighty Moses who split the Red Sea, couldn't even keep his hands up. Isn't that amazing? It's an amazing Rashi over here. Now, which mitzvah was it, Chava? Melchemes mitzvah. We'll see soon that fighting in the IDF is a Melchemet mitzvah. In fact, the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, when you join the IDF, you're doing Milchemet Mitzvah 24/7.
Even a bride has to go.
Even a bride from a bride, and a Milchemet Mitzvah, everybody has to go. So Moshe Rabbeinu didn't go. He sent Yeshua ben Nun in his place, and therefore he was punished. See, Chava, there are two types of mitzvahs. Certain mitzvahs you can do through a shliach. I can appoint a person to blow shofar for me, to make kiddush for me, to make havdalah for me, to read the Megillah for me. But can I appoint a person to put on tefillin for me?
No.
Why not? Why is it different than shofar? Why is it different than what? Than reading the Megillah or kiddush and havdalah?
It's a personal responsibility.
But everyone has a responsibility.
No, but it's their whole body.
Slaughtering the korban pesach. Can I appoint a shliach?
Yes.
Yes. Eating the korban pesach? No. Strange. I can appoint a shliach to shech the korban pesach for me, but I can't appoint a shliach to eat the shawarma for me. I got to eat the shawarma myself. So there's certain type of mitzvahs that I can do through a shliach, and certain mitzvahs which I have to do myself. The mitzvah of kibbut av v'aim, the Rambam debates whether that mitzvah can be done through a shliach or not. Kibbut av v'aim. He says that of course it's better to do it yourself, but if you can't, then you can appoint an agent or hire a Filipino, and you can do the mitzvah of kibbut av v'aim to a shliach, even though it's better to do it yourself. But certain mitzvahs you cannot make a shliach, like putting on tefillin, like eating the korban pesach, like eating matzah, right? There I have to do it myself. So Moshe Rabbeinu perhaps thought that joining the IDF I can do through a shliach. He appointed Yeshua ben Nun to be his agent. So Hashem said, no. Joining the IDF and fighting the war for Israel is a mitzvah like putting on tefillin. Rachmiel, can you do me a favor, tomorrow morning, Rachmiel, put on tefillin for me. Can you, please? Pretty please? You can make kiddush for me and havdalah for me and read the Megillah for me, but you can't put on tefillin for me. So fighting in the IDF, the Milchemet Mitzvah, is like putting on tefillin, and you cannot, make a shliach. And because Moshe Rabbeinu made a shliach, he appointed Yeshua ben Nun, therefore he was punished by this humiliating sight. Now who did Moshe draft to join the IDF, the first chief of staff? Who was it? Yeshua ben Nun. The greatest yeshiva bacher. Is there a greater yeshiva bacher? Moshe's star disciple. You would think he would be Potter. He joined Moshe Rabbeinu's koilel. But Moshe's star disciple, the greatest yeshiva bacher of all time, and Chazal say was 55 years old at the time. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu appointed him to go fight Abu Mamzer. Took him out of the koilel, Chava. Moshe Rabbeinu was Haredi, I think. So was Yeshua ben Nun. But anyway, some people say, don't confuse me with the facts, because my mind is what? Is already made up. Okay? So let's go back to the text over here. So his hands remained, see the word Amunah, Yehuda? It's the only time in the Chumash you have the word Amunah. In Pasuk Yud Bet, V'idei Moshe kvedim, Moshe's hands were heavy, Yud Bet, V'yikchu even, V'yishu matachta v'yoshav eleo, v'yeshav eleo, Aaron v'chur, Tomchu. B'yadav, they supported his hands, mizechad, one from one side, one from the other side. V'yadav was the word, V'yadav emunah. His hands remained loyal. So we have amunah on Hashem, we have to be loyal to Hashem. Here his hands remained loyal, they remained raised, ad bo Hashemesh, until what? The sun went down. And then they stopped the war. Why did they stop the war when the sun went down? Huh? So look at Rashi. Look at Rashi again. We Moshe kvedim. We said Rashi Yud Bet. You see that? B'shvil shenasasel b'mitzvah. He was laxed in the mitzvah. Didn't go to fight himself, and he appointed Yeshua ben Nun. Therefore, he suffered that his hands couldn't stay up. Vayikchu. The next Rashi. They took a stone. Who was they, Yehuda? Vayikchu. See that? Aaron v'chur. Evan. They took a stone. They they placed over him. Rashi wonders why not a beach chair? Chava. Why didn't they give him a beach chair to sit down? So what does Rashi say? He didn't sit on what? On a lazy boy. Omar, he said, Yisrael Shruyan B'tzar, the Jewish people are what? Suffering, a terror attack from Amalek, Afani Imohem B'tzar, so therefore he sat on a hard rock and not in a lazy boy chair. The next Rashi, Yodav Emunah, his hands were faithful. He Moshe Yodav Emunah, they remained raised up in prayer. So it's amazing, Moshe was praying, and yet he was punished that he should have gone and fight himself. An amazing Rashi here. Ad bo hashemesh. Now why did the war stop until they ran? They didn't have any flashlights, Elisheva, they couldn't see. Ad bo hashemesh. So look at Rashi. See that Yehuda Rashi? Avram, you have that? Shoya Amalekim mechashfin et hashois be'itztralogia. You see that? The Amalekites, they knew how to figure out the hours. See the word be'itztralogia? What's that in English? Astrology. Be'itztralogia. Be'ez shah heim notzchim, when they could win. V'hamid lehem Moshe chama. Moshe stopped the sun. Did you know that?
Yeah.
You knew that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Doesn't say in the Chumash that he did. The Rashi quotes Chazal that just like Yeshua ben Nun stopped the sun in the book of Joshua, Moshe Rabbeinu also stopped the sun in order to mix up the Amalekites. They shouldn't be able to do voodoo with the astrology. Okay? So back in the text, Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayachlosh Yeshua et Amalek that Amoy lefi Chorev. Yeshua weakened Amalek and his people lefi Chorev by the sword. Vayachlosh means, what does Chalash mean? He weakened them, right? So look at Rashi Yud Gimel, Vayachlosh Yeshua, you have that? Chotach Rosh Giborel v'lo Yishrael Chaloshim. He cut off the heads of the Starke, he knocked off their strong ones, but he left the Chaloshim. So Rashi wonders, is he able to destroy the strong ones? Why did he spare the weak ones? So Rashi said, Lo hargam kulan, he didn't kill them all. Bikan onu lameidim, from here we learn out, she'osu api adibur. God commanded him not to destroy the Amalekites. He could have destroyed the Amalekites then.
Probably.
But God said, let them off. Why?
Why?
Because Amalek is going to be God's whip to punish us. God knew we're not going to be Beseder throughout the centuries, so he has to leave the whipping boy. So therefore, Amalek is God's tool that he uses to punish us, and therefore he told Yeshua, like he tied his hands, like the IDF fights with one hand tied behind the back.
Yeah.
As long as the Jewish people are not Beseder, Amalek is there to what?
To whip us.
To whip us.
Like today.
Incredible, like today. Abu Mamzer, right?
Every day.
Right?
So why weren't Aaron?
What?
Why were they not punished also?
Why were they not? It's a good question. Why was only Moshe punished and not Aaron and Hur? Very good question, Gershon. You stumped me. They didn't join the IDF either. Good question. I don't know why. Rashi said only Moshe was punished for not joining the IDF, but not Aaron and Hur. I don't know. It's a good question. As Mikimia pointed out, Melchemes Mitzvah, everybody goes, even Kohanim. Even Kohanim go. Melchemes Mitzvah, there are no exemptions. Everybody goes. So I don't know why. Good question. But let's continue with the text, the Maftir. You have it, Gershon, the Maftir? V'yomer Hashem el Moshe, the Maftir, Pasuk Yudalet, Avram, you have that? Soiv Zoy Zikoran Basefer. Write this as a memorial in the book. Which book?
Book of Wars.
The Torah. The Simba Ozna Yeshua, and place it in the ears of Yeshua. Ki mochai emche. I will wipe out Ezecher Amalek mitachas hashamayim. You hear? That Amalek was the first nation to terrorize us. Why Yeshua? Because Yeshua is going to lead the Jewish people into Canaan, right? It won't be Moshe. Yeshua ben Nun. Pasuk Tezvav, in the text, Vayiven Moshe Mizbeach, so after the victory over the Amalek, Moshe built a Mizbeach, an altar, Vayikra Shemo Hashem Nisi, and he called the altar what? Hashem is my miracle. Exodus 17:15. Vayiven Moshe Mizbeach. Moshe built an altar. Vayikra Shemo Hashem Nisi. He called the he called the altar, Hashem is my miracle. Nes. Now, look at Rashi Tezvav on the left column. Vayikra Shemo. Moshe called the name. Rashi Tezvav on the left column. He called the name of the Mizbeach Hashem Nisi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Asalonu Ka Nes Gadol. God made a great miracle for us here when we defeated in the 6-day war little tiny Israel, 7 Arab armies. You hear this? So, he didn't call the altar God. Elamaske Shemos al Mizbeach remembers the great victory, the great miracle Hashem did for us when we defeated what? Amalek. Now, after Kriyas Yamsuf, why didn't the Moshe Rabbeinu build an altar also to publicize the great miracle that happened? Why only after the war against Amalek did Moshe build an altar and publicize the fact that Hashem is my miracle? The splitting of the Red Sea was just as spectacular, and there Moshe didn't build an altar to publicize that Hashem did it. Why Dafke Melchemet Amalek? Why not by Kriyas Yamsuf, which was just as marvelous, perhaps even greater? And there Moshe didn't feel the need to be public relations for God and publicize the miracle. Why do you think, Chava? Kriyas Yamsuf, you don't need any publicity. Everybody could see the hand of Hashem, supernatural. Moshe didn't have to publicize it. The miracle spoke for itself. But Melchemet Amalek, the 6-day war, the Yom Kippur war, Melchemet HaShichrur, maybe it was we had more motivation, we had better weapons, better training, better Phantoms and F-16s. So maybe we did it. Maybe we did it. So Dafke Melchemet Amalek, where a person can say, it's what? The IDF did it.
And then we didn't wipe out Amalek.
Right? So therefore, Dafka a Nes Nistar, a miracle which is not so obvious, there we have to publicize the fact that it's just as miraculous as what? As splitting of the Red Sea. Little tiny Israel against how many Arab armies? Right? Melchemet HaShichrur, the
Was 7.
7 Arab armies. They had tanks and planes, and we had seltzer bottles and Spitfires, and World War I rifles we had, and the Vitkas that made a loud boom but didn't do anything. And that miracle is even greater than Kriyas Yamsuf. But that needs to be publicized because people can say we were better motivated, we had better training. But the Torah is saying it's just as spectacular as what? As Kriyas Yamsuf, but this Dafke miracle needs to be what? Needs to be publicized. More than Kriyas Yamsuf, where there the miracle spoke for itself. Right? So look at the last pasuk in the parsha. We read this 2 Shabbos ago, right, Yehuna? Pasuk Tezayin. Vayomer, and Moshe said, Ki yod al keis yah. The hand on the throne of God. Melchama l'Adonai. God will wage war, Ba'amalek, midor dor. In each and every generation, God is going to wage war against Amalek. Now, strange pasuk. God's name is written Yud K instead of Yud K Vav K. See that pasuk Tezayin? Vayomer ki yod al keish ka. Normally you write God's name Yud K Vav K. Here it's written half. And case, God's throne is written Kisei. Here it's also. Why is God's name and his throne written incomplete over here? Very strange. So Rashi makes an amazing comment. Look at Rashi Tezayin on the left column. You have that? Vayomer Moshe. Rashi Tezayin, the left column. Moshe said, Ki yod al keis ka. Yoda shal Kodesh Baruch Hu hurma. So to speak, God's hand is raised in an oath. Remember when you take an oath, you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, raise your right hand. So Kodesh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol, God doesn't have a hand, but the Torah speaks in the language of men. I think it's called Yehuda anthropomorphism. God's hand, so to speak, is raised to swear by his throne. Lios loy milchama ve'eva. God will have eternal war and hatred. Ba'amalek oilamit. What does olamit mean? Forever. Umau case. You see the Rashi? Normally, God's throne is written kisei. Why is it written defectively case? V'af Hashem nechlak lechetzcha. Even God's name is written half. Instead of Yud Kei Vav Kei Rei, it's written Ka. Nishba Kodesh Baruch Hu. God swears. Listen to this. She'ein Shemo Shalem. That God's name will not be complete. Masha, you following me? Nishba Kodesh Baruch Hu. God swears. She'ein Shemo Shalem. God's name will not be complete. Ve'ein Kisei Shalem. And God's throne. What does that mean? His throne. His sovereignty will not be complete. Only when Amalek's name is totally what? Eradicated. And only when Amalek's name is totally wiped out, Hashem Shalem, Vakisei Shalem. Only then will God's name be complete and God's sovereignty throne will be complete. As long as there's evil in the world personified by Amalek and Abu Mamzer and our peace partners, God's throne, God's sovereignty and name cannot be complete. So when will that happen, Chava? When Mashiach comes. Because before we can destroy the external Amalek, we have to destroy the Amalek that lives inside of us. You know, Amalek is Gematria Sufek. Who's good in Gematria? Abraham, you good in Gematria? Amalek is Gematria Sufek. Right? Amalek is Gematria Sufek. Sufek means doubt. Is God really in charge? Maybe you're fooling yourself. So every person in his life, if he's honest, has some of Amalek living inside of him. So we have to get rid of the internal Amalek before we can defeat what? The external Amalek. Right? The Amalek says everything that happens is just what? Mikre. Everything that happens is what? Is just chance. What I do doesn't matter. I'm just all we are is dust in the wind. Well, Mikra, right? Mikra means what? Coincidence, chance. There is no plan. There is no creator. That is what Yehuda, the philosophy of Amalek. Your life is a zero. You mean nothing because you are nothing. You might as well become a shaheed and get the 72 virgins. That's the mentality of the modern day Amalek. You don't count for anything. You know the story. Arafat died and he went to heaven. You know the story? Yeah. Arafat died and he went to heaven. They put him in a room with an old hag. So he said, God, where's my 72 virgins? So God says, you didn't hear correctly. I never said 72 virgins. I said a 72-year-old virgin. Arafat was hard of hearing. But this is the Amalek mentality, Avram. Even today, your life is a zero. You might as well blow yourself up. Right? Because life means nothing. You have no self-worth. That's Amalek philosophy. And the Jewish people is the opposite of that. B'ni b'choyri Yisrael. God says, you're not just my child, you're my what? My firstborn. You are unique and special. You have eternal, incalculable worth, every one of you. That's the exact opposite philosophy of what? Of the Amalek. The Mishnah Sanhedrin says, B'shvili nivra olam. Every person has to say the entire universe, with all the zillions and galaxies, was created for Moshe Rabbeinu? For whom? Me. Me, little old me. I'm so important to Hashem. Little old me. B'shvili nivra olam. V'hi yoda v'emunah. Look at the text, Yehuda. V'hi yoda v'emunah. Again in the text, Yud Bet. I'm giving my interpretation of this. Pasuk Yud Bet in the text. V'hi yoda v'emunah. I have to have emunah, Chava, that what I do with my hands makes a difference to him. I like my pshat, Avram. I hope you're writing this down. You see that, Shelley? Vahi yodav emunah. I have to have emunah that what I do with my hands in this world, what I accomplish, matters to him. I'm not a zero. I'm not a shaheed to blow myself up. Yuda, I like my pshat, even though I said it, I didn't hear it. Vahi yodav emunah. I have to have emunah that what I accomplish, the hand is a symbol of accomplishment, matters to Kodesh Baruch Hu. The exact opposite of what? Of Amalek. It's not enough to believe in God. You got to believe in your own self-worth. What I do matters to him. I make a difference. He can't do it without me. Bishvili nivra olam. Mishnah Sanhedrin, the whole universe was created only for me. And if I don't do it, nobody else, no one can do it my way. Da-da-da-da. What? Beautiful. Ray's ahead of me. The Mishnah says, Im eina nili mili. If I don't do it, it won't get done. Rav Kook says this on this Mishnah. If I don't do it, no one else can do it my way. And it won't get done.
President Crony said on your birthday, God needed you.
Well, and today's my birthday. Kawinky dinky? Elisheva? I don't think so. Yes. Thanks to Gail and Norman Brainin, they reminded me. I don't know how they knew. Today's my Hebrew birthday, Chava. How did they know? I don't know. I never told them. And they're sponsoring this year. Thank you very much to Golda and Nachum Brainin. So anyway, getting back to over here, it says God will wage war against Amalek midor dor. But if you look in the book of Deuteronomy, Moshe says something else. There it says, in the end of Parshas Kiteitzei, Deuteronomy 25, verse 19, it says, it shall be when Hashem your God gives you rest from all your enemies all around, in the land that Hashem your God gives you as an inheritance to possess it, you shall wipe out Amalek. Wait a minute, I'm mixed up. Here in Exodus 17 it says, Hashem will destroy Amalek. But in Deuteronomy 25, 19, Chava, it says what? The IDF has to do it. I'm all mixed up.
So why don't they let him do it?
Why don't they do it right?
Houston, we got a problem here. We have a conflicting text, Gershom. But if you analyze a question, the answer is in the question. Here in Exodus 17, did the Jewish people have a land and a country and a sovereignty yet, Masha? No. We were nomads in the middle of the desert. We had no army. We had no country, no sovereignty. So there God says, Hashem will fight Amalek. But in Deuteronomy 25, verse 19, look what God says. It shall be when Hashem your God gives you rest from your enemies in the land that Hashem gives you as an inheritance to possess it, then you shall wipe out Amalek. Who's you? The IDF. We have to do the job. The first nation to terrorize the Jewish people was what? Was Amalek. And they set the example for other nations. They set the example for other nations to go and what? And to terrorize the Jewish people. But anyway, here the Torah is telling us clearly that what? That everyone has an obligation to serve in the IDF if he's able to. And again, Lubavitcher Rebbe said that serving in the IDF, you're doing Melchemet Mitzvah 24/7. Masha, I think he was Haredi Rabbi, Lubavitcher Rebbe. Serving in the IDF, he says you're doing Melchemet Mitzvah 24/7.
And the Chabadniks all go in.
What? Chabad? Now, you can Google... Right, he actually said, and you can Google this. Right after the 6-Day War, he gave a Farbrengen. It's on, someone put it on YouTube, but you have to understand Yiddish. Baruch Hashem, I understand Yiddish, and he said as follows, amazing. Right after the 6-Day War, Chava, you can Google the Farbrengen. That summer, he said something amazing. He said, if you look in the book of Shmuel, he said, it always mentions, when the Jews went to war under King David, it mentions Yoav before David. Now, who was the king and who was the chief of the army?
David was king.
David was the king. Shouldn't he get top billing, Yehuda, and before the general? So the Lubavitcher Rebbe, you can Google it. You understand Yiddish? in YouTube. Someone put it up. I don't know who put it up. It's so clear. So he asked, how come in the book of Shmuel, when the Jews go to war under King David, the general gets mentioned top billing before the king of Israel?
Because he did it.
Don't steal my thunder. Says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Talmud teaches us that Yoav went to fight, to lead the army, and King David stayed behind and composed Tillim, praying that the IDF would be successful. So he says, since the victory happened through Yoav, the physical victory happened to Yoav, even though it was the schusim of Dover HaMelech davening. But since Yoav risked his life with the soldiers in the slime pits there, in the foxholes, therefore Yoav and the Chayalim always get top billing before King David.
Which war was this?
This is right after the 6-Day War. He gave a Farbrengen right after the 6-Day War. He's mentioning how we have to appreciate the Chayalim, that they are mentioned before King David even. This is how Lubavitch Rebbe loved the Chayalim.
No, but I'm saying which war, because David fought in those wars.
No, the Talmud says that David stood behind. Later on,
Which war?
later on, David remained behind, and he sent Yoav to fight. As he got older, he remained behind and composed the Tillim when he got older. So then Yoav is mentioned first because he actually took the risks. They take the risks. The Chayalim out there on the field, like last night, they confronted these terrorists, tried to capture the murderer of Rav Shevach. Right? They had a shootout with these terrorists. So they are risking their lives day and night, and the least that we can do is what? Is make a mishaberach for them. Masha, how could you not make a mishaberach for the Chayalim? How could you not make a mishaberach for the Chayalim? I just don't understand it. And if you take a look, I didn't make a copy, but in Parshas Matos, when the Jews go to fight Midian, it says, Elef lamate, Elef lamate. 1,000 to a tribe, 1,000 to a tribe. That means each tribe supplied 1,000 men to go fight Midian. So the Mechilta, the Medrash, the Mechilta asked, it says, Ela, you know Hebrew, Elef lamate, Elef lamate. If 1,000 per tribe, it's Elef lamate. So Hakman says Elef lamate twice. In Parshas Matos, it says Elef lamate, Elef lamate. 1,000 for a tribe, 1,000 for a tribe went to fight Midian. There's only 1,000 per tribe. So why is it written 1,000 twice? Says the Mechilta something amazing. For each soldier that went out to fight, there was a soldier sitting in the Beis Medrash with his name and his mother's name, davening for his hatzlacha, making mishaberach for him. So according to the Mechilta, making mishaberach for the tzahal is a mitzvah from the Torah. There's an extra word, mashe elef lamateh. For each 1,000 men that went to fight, there was another 1,000 sitting in the koilel, davening and praying, each one for that chayal in the foxhole. So according to the Mechilta, you can look it up, by Midbar 31, Pasuk 4, making a mishaberach for the chayalim is a mitzvah from the Torah. The whole Torah stands on Hakaras HaTov. We owe our lives to the chayalim. Of course they're God's shliach, but God works through what? Human agents. Right, Yehuda? Megal Nuschus Hayidei Zakai. So the least that we can do is what? Is to support them and to pray for them. I just can't understand that, right?
And that's what David was doing, right?
That's what David was doing, but Yoav is mentioned first because he was in the foxholes. The generals mentioned before the king of Israel, Mechama, said Lubavitch Rebbe, very strange, not so strange. David stayed behind and davened. He was too old to fight. And the generals and the army was there fighting, so therefore they get top billing. Said the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he was super Haredi. They get top billing before the guys studying in the Kailo. Can you believe that? It's on YouTube, but it's in Yiddish. Okay? Baruch Hashem, I understand Yiddish.
Well, wasn't Moses too old to fight here? So?
That's a good question. So what do you want from Moshe? How old was he? He was 80 years old. But he was like 80 years old, you know. He didn't look 80. He lived another 40 years. And remember, 40 years later, he knocked off Og Melech HaBashan. Remember? 40 years later, he knocked off the ogre. So he was 80. They say 40 is the new 80 today. No, 80 is the new 40. You didn't hear that? 80 is the new 40, right? The Torah testifies when he died at 120, he wasn't shriveled up. He all had his a Rambo, right? The Torah testifies like that. But David was shriveled up and frail.
Was his hair gray?
What? But Moshe Rabbeinu was a physical specimen. The Torah testifies at the end of Tzais HaBracha. Okay, let me say what the Torah says about him. But King David, the Navi says he was all shriveled up and frail.
At 70, he was used up.
He was used up, right? He was burned out. But in Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah says something amazing. I'll read it to you. The Torah testifies. I think the English word is virility. Is that the right word, if I'm not mistaken? Is that the right word? Here, at the end of Zos HaBracha, I think it's called virility. The Torah testifies over here. Moshe. It's Deuteronomy 34, Pasuk 7. Deuteronomy 34, Pasuk 7. Moshe was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were not dimmed. He didn't wear glasses. And his vigor and virility were not diminished. Unlike King David, right? At 70, the Torah said that he was a physical wreck. Kings won. So, what?
He had other issues.
Okay, whatever. But anyway, Moshe Rabbeinu should have gone to fight, and he was punished, Avram. Rashi, right here. Can you show your son Meir the paper? It's important. That's why I made copies. Exodus 17.
Moses didn't have a wife until King David at 14. That's the
He had 18. King David had 18. Moshe had a wife, but he divorced her. The whole story there, why Miriam spoke.
Wait a minute.
What? King David had 18 wives.
No, but didn't Moshe go back to Zipporah?
Did he go back to Zipporah? Not so simple, right? He divorced her, and it's just amazing that... should I let the cat out of the bag?
Well, she asked a question.
Listen to me, please. I'll let the cat out of the bag, okay?
Okay, we're waiting.
You know, God's chariot, Kaviyachol. God is the Ma'aseh Merkava. According to the Zohar, there are four that carry God's chariot. Who are the four? Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and David. Moshe Rabbeinu says, what am I, chopped liver? I'm the Av Nevi'im, the Chama, the greatest Navi that ever lived. Greater than Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. The lawgiver, the Redeemer. How come I'm not the regular Revi? How come I'm not the leg that holds up the chariot? Why is David in my place? I'm greater than Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the greatest Navi that ever lived. Moses, who redeemed us? Who split the Red Sea for us, gave us Dan Quayle and Mun. So why is he not part of the chariot? You know what the Zohar says? Because he caused anguish to his wife. He caused pain and anguish to his wife. He sent her away. He broke her heart. So God says, you can't be the regel. How do you say it in English? You can't be the leg that holds up my chariot. The Zohar HaKodesh says this, otherwise I couldn't repeat it. How careful you have to be. What? When you speak to your wife, your better half. Not to cause her anguish. And because Moses did, because he divorced her, he was not the fourth regel. How do you say in English, regel? The leg that holds up what? Chariot. I'm talking to myself, right? I have to be extra careful. All of us, how we treat our better half. Our better half.
There's also the issue when they talk about the Cushite woman. That was an Ethiopian. If you read
Whatever it was, whether it's Tzipporah or someone else, Machlokas Rashi and others, but anyway, he did not treat her properly, says the Zohar, and therefore he could not be the regel, the leg that holds up Kaviyachol, God's divine chariot. The Zohar says this. I'm over 40, we can talk. You're over 40, right? Thank you very much.